Good afternoon, Patriot pals. Thank you for joining me. Have a good day, everyone, and God bless you. Alright, let's get into the news. Afghanistan has a quake that has killed 1,000 people. It's the deadliest in a decade. And that brings us to Middle East. We think the Middle East, we think of oil, we think of gas prices. A fact sheet was released today by the White House. And it reveals the plan by Joe Biden to call on Congress to give a gas tax holiday through September, as gas prices nationwide continue to rest near $5 per gallon, a jump of roughly $2 per gallon for more than 1 year ago. And more than double when Biden took office, because it's all Putin's fault. Americans have felt the surge of inflation as not just gas prices, but gas prices have led to other inflation as well. The fact sheet begins by blaming Putin, as I told you, in the war on Ukraine as a reason for the most surge in prices. The memo says that Biden will be calling on Congress and states to take additional legislative action to provide direct relief to American consumers who have been hit with Putin as price hikes. That's what they're calling it. That's what they have been calling it, specifically as calling on Congress to suspend the federal gas tax for 3 months. Meanwhile, they're continuing just spending and printing money and doing other things that are adding that to these economic woes. Not adding but causing them. Remember, we did not have these woes under Donald John Trump. Alright, let's talk about more information that we have after if you missed my last midnight show. We're hard working around here. We're not quite CNN, but we're around the clock news. I'm literally recording this about 8 or 9 hours after our quasi-midnight show was midnight Eastern Standard Time. Actually, it's about 11 hours to get back is about 10 or 11 hours after that upload last night. But we've got some new news having to do with the gun control laws that are going to be enacted. We already know, as I've mentioned, that the Democrats have enough turncoat Republicans to work on this bill, that the framework is ready to go, that you need to put it together and vote on it. Well, here is the NRAS reaction. So the Senate voted 6,434 to advance the gun control bill Tuesday evening. Senators on Tuesday came to a final agreement on gun control legislation. And this is the statement from the NRA. The NRA will support legislation that improves school security, promotes mental health services, and helps reduce violent crime. However, we will oppose this gun control legislation because it falls short at every level. It does truly little. It does little to truly address violent crimes. When opened the door to unnecessary burdens on the exercise of Second Amendment freedom by law-abiding gun owners. This legislation can be abused to restrict lawful gun purchases, infringe upon the rights of law-abiding citizens, and use federal dollars to fund gun control measures being adopted by state and local politicians. This bill leaves much too much discretion in the hands of government officials. Okay, now, and it's similar to the statement that they had released a few days ago before we have the framework. But let's actually dig into this, because they've been pushing for gun control. Biden has made that one of things he wants to do. All of a sudden we have these slew of shootings. Of course, those are all coinkydink. Right. Those are all just serendipitous. They're just fortuitous. For the gun control, lobby in the gun control. But here's where it's interesting. This bipartisan gun control bill contains heightened penalties for firearm trafficking and straw purchases. Now that we see the verbiage, we can link into that the here's what's going on traffic or straw purchases were not used in All Day, Buffalo, Parkland, Las Vegas, Orlando, among some of the mass shooting events. So Section 293 to 932. And 3 of the new bill have this: it shall be unlawful for any person to knowingly purchase or conspired to purchase any firearm in or otherwise affecting interstate or foreign commerce for on behalf over the request or demand of any other person, knowing or having possible cause to believe that such other person is prohibited from making the purchase for themselves. Well, here's where it's redundant. ATF Form 4473 already asked the following question in the background check. Are you the actual transferee buyer of the firearm lists on this form? Warning: you are not if you are not the actual transferee buyer, if you are acquiring the firearm on behalf of another person. If you are not the actual transfer buyer, the licensee cannot transfer the firearms to you. So there's little redundancy here. But guess what? Those were not issues in these mass shooting events. All but 3 of them, all but 3 of the mass profile, high-profile mass shootings in the last 15 years. They've gotten their guns legally through background checks. So who is this going to hurt? This is going to hurt law-abiding citizens. 2 of the 3 who avoided background checks, the town center attacker in December of 2012, and the Sandy Hook attacker, stole their guns so that they stole the guns from legal people. So all this stuff in the gun control would not have avoided or stopped those things from happening. And then the Midland, Texas attacker acquired his gun via a private sale. All of the other ones got their guns via background checks. So this little facts, but folks, John Cornyn isn't done yet. The rhinos aren't done yet. Texas GOP Senator John Cornyn last night said he would push an immigration bill with amnesty advocate, Senator Alex Padilla. Mitch McConnell has his Duke, Texas Senator John Cornyn working on the unit party destruction of America. Now this suggestion came as Cornyn congratulated Republicans and Democrats as they voted for a bill to curb gun violence. This is what was tweeted out by a Huffington Post. Reporter: more positive vibes on Senate floor, smiling corner, and tells Padilla first guns, now it's immigration. That's right. We're going to do it, says Kristen Sinema, Democrat of Arizona. Cornyn has drafted a border security bill with Sinema, while Padilla is pushing for formal amnesty of more than 1 million illegal migrants who were brought by their illegal migrant. The Cornyn-Sinema bill would streamline the inflow with new processing centers and aid workers, plus easy migrant access to lawyers. The draft bill does not include any significant measures to reduce the flood of wage-cutting and rent-boosting migrants into American communities. Let's look at this, Jack, though. Okay, it would make Border Patrol and all of our law enforcement at the border sued purely what they are already now, welcome centers for illegal aliens, and we will get to pay for the legal representation we have illegal migrants invading our country. That is the Cornyn-Sinema bill that's being worked on right now. It doesn't stop. There is no see where Reagan screwed up in the 80s, when he gave amnesty, was he made a deal and said, okay, we're going to beef up the border, we're going to stop it. We're going to try to stop illegal immigration. And we'll give amnesty, while the Democrats, the liars, and the unit party, rhinos, from that time forward, have done nothing, really, until President Trump came along. And you saw how hard they fought him on the border wall, on catch and release, stopping catch and release. I'm actually surprised that Title 42 has lasted this long. Until Trump came, no one's been really trying to stop this border crisis. And that is why what happened, and President Trump is no longer there. Now, what we see here is, this has been in the works, and this is the next rhino thing. And it's coming quickly, right on the heels of the other one. John Cornyn has become essentially the new Mitt Romney. Or worse, because Mitt Romney has been ineffective for the most part, just saying stupid crap. And being a thorn in President Trump's side. Total shame of us here in Utah. I just recently moved to Utah last year, so I can't take credit for voting for him. Wasn't a Mittens fan. But unfortunately, Orrin Hatch retired and asked Trump to endorse this carpetbagger. Trump did. And then he came in, just a backstab. But Corn is actively working. First of this gun control bill, which of course Romney is one of the 10 senators on board with, and now working with Sinema for amnesty. We know from what Cornyn has said to PDF. He said this in a June 14 hearing that he's long been a supporter of employment-based immigration. It doesn't matter where you're from or where you live. If you have skills that can contribute to our economy and our country. Our employment-based immigration program provides a path for you to come to United States legally. Yes, it does matter, because we have college graduates and people here that can do the job, and they're being displaced by low wages to appease the greedy technocrats and others. That is a problem. Yes, I am a nationalist and a protectionist in certain aspects. But apparently Cornyn isn't. And this is also where I have beef with Mike Lee, or other senator here out of Utah who is a shill for big tech. Because I don't know if you know this, but Utah is like another little mini Silicon Valley. We got Adobe here, that would beautiful campus, other companies here as well. And they like it to bring in low-wage tech workers. With these visas, and Michael is part of that machine. Our immigration system is struggling to keep pace, as what Cornyn said. Per-country caps are artificially limited the employment-based visas for prospective immigrants like countries from countries like India. As you can see, Cornyn is not about protecting our workforce. He is going to be part of the rhino machine. working with Sinema and the Democrats to further damage America. Hey, at least we've got some good news here. At least we've got some good news here. Coming from the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court announced, and I think I closed that. Had a right there and when I moved from tab to trying to do this on one take since we don't have the stereo or the setup we wanted to. We have some good news from the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court yesterday released its ruling on a main case relating to using government vouchers for religious schools. Okay. Maine was prohibiting parents from using these vouchers to pay for religious schools. The court ruled that Maine could not do this. Quote, the Supreme Court ruled in Carson versus making that a program that permitted parents and districts without prop-like high schools to use vouchers to pay for private schools unconstitutionally prohibit the use of the vouchers for religious schools. Would you believe that Chief Justice Roberts actually wrote the majority opinion? And that actually got a 6-3 decision. Quote, this decision recognizes that religious institutions should have equal access to government programs without sacrificing their religious identity and ability to remain true to their mission. That was said by Eric Baxter, Vice President and Senior Counsel at the Becket Fund for Religious Liberty. This is what Chief Justice wrote. He said, there's nothing neutral about men's program. The state pays tuition for certain students at private schools, so long as the schools are not religious. This is discrimination against religion. I cannot believe that I agree with Chief Justice Roberts. It's been a long time since I've been able to say that. Of course, liberals are upset about the ruling and claim it infringes on the division between church and state, which, of course, they've been misinterpreting for a long time. The separation, which is not actually like separation of church and state, is not in our founding documents as the left would have you believe. We are not to have a state church. We're not supposed to have a state-sponsored religion. We're not supposed to have an official religion. Go back to your history, the Anglican Church, the Church of England. They said, no, we do not want to have an official church, we want to be able to worship freely. I know in the revisionist history of the 1619 folks and other work agenda that we're not supposed to talk about that religious freedom was one of the impetus of people coming to the New World from Europe and England. But that's the case. And that's why we are not to have a state-sponsored religion. It does not mean that religion and religious institutions and religion can't cooperate in getting things done. And as we know, religious institutions are a lot more effective than bureaucratic government. So yesterday was a win for religious freedom, and for fairness and equity. They've long been in not just men in other places discriminating against religious institutions. Alright, and the last I want to talk about, and once again, I flesh this out a lot more, especially having to do with the state of Georgia on episode 292. Trump-endorsed candidates were victorious in Virginia and Alabama, but they were decimated in Georgia. Candidates backed by former President Donald J. Trump won their primary races in Virginia and the Alabama Senate runoff but ran into trouble again in Georgia, where both Trump-endorsed candidates lost to nomination bids. The 45th president's endorsement record now stands at 133-10. Following Tuesday's races, still a hell of a record. Okay. So the biggest thing is Trump Republican Katie Britt, who beat Mo. Brooks for the U.S. Senate in Alabama. And other notable things in other states happened as well. But here's where it's really strange. Even though Katie Britt won against Mo Brooks, a household name, Vernon Jones lost. And he was backed by Trump very much out. There was actually even thinking about running for the gubernatorial race, had a lot of momentum behind him. Let's not forget that about a month ago, 24th of May last month, that brat reference Berger was running for Secretary of State. And he got just enough votes, 52-38 on the Republican side, to avoid a runoff to be Secretary of State, even though everyone had an attendant 25% support from Republicans, and he was losing right before and he had a last-minute search to win. And he called his win early as well. Kind of like we saw with Joey in Arizona a couple of years ago. Remember, there's a series of movies called The Terminator, not all of them good. T2 and the original Terminator being pretty much the only ones worth watching. And the whole thing had to do with the destruction of the world because the machines took over. Well, I can't say much more than this. It seems like the rise of the machines spells the death and the end of MAGA candidates are the people's candidates in the state of Georgia. Thanks for sticking around. Follow me daily. I will do my best to show you. There's a lot of information that shows what's going on. Remember where we